Hello, everyone, to answer the call. We're going to discuss, obviously, the big news this week. Letter from the chairman. That was a big deal. I'm going to quickly give my thoughts on it. I think I made a video on it, and we've talked extensively about it on stream already. I liked it. Overall, I thought it was really good. I thought the tone was the highlight of the letter. Some things didn't work out, guys. Like iCache. Some things may not work out because we don't know what their implementation will bring, like PES, like server meshing. We won't know until we know. Just like iCache, essentially. That they're kind of setting expectations correctly in a lot of ways, but also hearing their player base and seeing that because so many players are playing, that they don't want to provide a bad experience to those players. And I find that to be very, very exciting in the sense that a 3.17.2 will be coming, and boy, do we need it, seeing 3.17.1, which didn't achieve the tone or the mentality shift from the letter of from the chairman, where we rushed out a patch, I believe, for a ship sale, and now we're dealing with more 30Ks, more bugs, inventory issues, countless issues for a ship sale. And not even for a key piece of tech. It's for a ship sale, which I guess is a key piece of tech in a way, because it pays for all of it. But I digress, I guess, with overall, I thought the tone was really good. Overall, I think the direction that CIG is going is very good, with focusing more on the live server being that live service, and then the PTU being that place where we test major features like server meshing, like the PES or persistence, as it's been called before. So I'm happy with all that, but talk is cheap, and talk has always been cheap. And there's been a lot of talk with Star Citizen. We need to, as a community, I feel like, to see the PES working. I want to see what you showed the studio. Because you could write whatever you want, but you have to prove it to us. You have to prove it to the gaming community that Star Citizen might be a thing, right? And I think 3.17.2 has a lot of very nice looking features from what he wrote there. So that has to be a thing as well. So I don't know. Do the lies continue, as I see in chat? Or is this an actual shift in a direction that I've been asking for years? Only time will tell. But overall, I love the tone. And let's bring on our first caller, Meyer, and see what him and the rest of the community, or I guess my little community here, thinks about it. Meyer, hello, welcome.
Hello.
How you doing?
Doing good. Thanks for having me.
Anytime. So, what'd you think?
What did I think? So first of all, I think, this was the first chairman's letter in over 2 years, right? Like, the last one was in December 2020.
Yeah.
Not that, that should mean much. I think in the past, he used to give us letters after every million made, but he kept repeating himself, and for the same reason where it was 10 for the chairman, he'd speak, and then there'd be promises, and then those promises wouldn't deliver. I think it's a good thing that he kind of stopped doing those letters. This time around though, it's like he's covering a bunch of stuff that they've done over the years. It's been like a health check kind of thing, like telling us what's happened, how they've been handling COVID, and what they're doing with the studios and stuff like that. In terms of that part of the letter, I think it's part of the course, and just, it's nice to see, growth is still happening and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
but that's not the interesting things, that the interesting stuff you want to talk about, right? CitizenCon and Bar Citizen and all that stuff, right? It's all about the game, right?
Yeah. Like the beginning and some of those things were like, hey, we're not dead yet.
Yeah. And we're not dead yet. I mean, it's ridiculous that they're like they're getting a studio that can fit like 1,000 people here in the UK. And I think that currently they have like 300 to 400 people. So it's obvious that whoever is in charge of the money is at least looking and projecting and seeing where they can go with the current funding, and growth is still there.
Yeah, but I also like, that's interesting the way you look at it. I look at it as they need these devs. They need to grow in order to deliver on a game of this scale or this ambition. So it just is. I think a lot of the issues and a lot of the common complaints about the game are a direct result of Squadron 42 and Star Citizen being developed at the same time, and they just don't have the manpower.
Yeah.
So like, is growth possible, or is it like just straight necessary? It's probably a combination of the two.
Right. I mean, for them to achieve what they want to, I think it has to be, because CIG is. Yeah. Sorry. Go on.
I shouldn't have interrupted. I apologize, but I was just saying, just like, look at what we've dealt with over the years. It's just obvious,
Yeah, I mean, CIG is very unique because it's game development left unchecked, right? There's no publisher. It's, I want to make this thing, and I'm going to keep making it until it's made. It's less like a businessy, and more like, when you have an artist who wants to paint something and it's done when it's done, right? But we, they're consumers waiting for the thing to be done, and so there's a level of impatience that they have to kind of like cater to. But I do find it really interesting as a project to just kind of like sit down and like see what they're doing and see where they want to go and how they can make it, as long as they have that funding. It's weird. To me, I don't know. I think I have more patience than most because I look at it like that. But that's that aside.
I mean, just on before we move on to that, just like on that topic, and I just saw somebody type in chat, and it kind of was like, that's like what that person said is so true. The publishers in history have like caused a lot of issues with games that we were very excited about.
Oh yeah,
and nobody really likes publishers, so this definitely has its problems. There's no denying that.
Oh yeah,
but you kind of want to see it out to see what it ends up like.
Exactly.
Because it's at least different from the standard practice of just ruining every game we're excited about.
Yeah.
So
it's definitely like, I wouldn't say once in a lifetime, but it's close to that when it comes to like this much funding going into something like this. I don't think the games industry is really like in a position to make another Star Citizen of any genre, because you do have people, on top who have goals and stuff and who need to have things on time, and you have, shareholders to appease and all that stuff. And Star Citizen, for the most part, doesn't have any of that. And so, like, this is our kind of one chance to see, just where it could go. And I think it's also kind of why there's so much negative press to it as well, because like, if Star Citizen succeeds in doing this while, not having any of that, then it might make people want more of it, and not many people are going to want to deliver that same deal.
Yeah, I mean, it sets the bar higher, but I think unfortunately there is no bar. I just feel like there won't be a bar anymore just because of the time that it took. If Star Citizen just focused on Star Citizen and nothing else, or just on Squadron 42 and nothing else, I wonder if that would have changed the way games are made in the future. But they went too far, and now we're in this place where it's like, what?
Yeah,
I don't think, even if it ends up being like a really great game, the amount of time it took will always be that like cloud over its head. Exactly.
I mean, like, as you say, it's been like, 10 years since its inception. So even if it is successful, I mean, like, the gamers who like, came in from like, the very beginning, 10 years ago, they're now like in their 40s, 50s, some of them in their 60s.
I'm almost 40.
Right.
I was in my 20s.
Yeah, even if they do see something that has the same level of promise as Star Citizen, I don't think they have the mortality in order to back it, you know? They'd be like, I'm just going to play Star Citizen, you know? So
she was a kitten. My cat was
right.
a kitten, and now she's got like kidney issues, and we don't know how much longer we have with her. Like, that's how long the game has taken, you know?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. But regardless, you know. But yeah, down to the chairman's letter. I mean, so when he started talking about the game and the road for 4.0, obviously, you know, like there's a lot of engine stuff that kind of went over my head. But I think the big part there, you know, is like, you know, where they came from and then where they're going with 4.0 and, you know, like saying 3.18 is going to be maybe like a end of year kind of deal as opposed to like this quarterly release thing. But him describing the persistent entity streaming or PES or PES or whatever and server meshing was kind of cool. And the fact that, like, as you said earlier, like in studio, they were able to get PES running, you know, locally. So for those who are listening, like, so PES is like a system for persistence where, like, if you're playing the game and you have an item and you drop it on the floor, you know, and somebody can pick it up later, right? However, it's not just that. For the game to work as far as like an MMO is concerned, you want to be able to have an item, drop it on the floor, and oh crap, a 30k, or oh crap, the server's crashed. I want to log back in and see my stuff. And so
or just
locally,
be in the place where you crashed.
That
like that,
too.
I think like the location that you're in, I think is the biggest issue with the current way that the game works.
Right.
Is you if the game crashes or you simply log out, just standing somewhere, you're not there when you come back.
That too, but the situation he described here is more than that because it's I had a Medipen and I dropped it on the floor and then they crashed the actual local live service and then they just spooled up the server and then everything was still there because of this replication layer that's like basically logging everything. So it's, if they can, and that's what they've done locally, if they can make it so that this happens like with 3.18, which they kind of need to because they're also getting in the physicalized cargo refactor thing where like cargo will be in grids, but you can also move it around loosely. If you pull out cargo and drop it on the floor and you crash, that's going to suck. The entire game's going to be broken unless they have this PES in with physicalized cargo. They kind of are dependent of each other, or at least the cargo is dependent of PES to actually have the game not suck when they have this level of persistence in, or like cargo fidelity in. Yeah, but they've actually, you know, you're talking about iCache before and how it kind of like fumbled because it was too like heavy on like systems. Like for the past couple years, they've had bits and bobs of like iCache and PES. Well, and I wouldn't say PES because they didn't have those two layers, but they had bits and bobs of iCache in and working, but only in certain instances. If you've ever used a Carrack like last year and you decorated it with stuff, and then you stored the Carrack at a station, and then logged off, and then logged onto an Australian server, and then pulled up that Carrack, every single item that you put in the Carrack, including ships and items in the ships and items in the Pisces, would still remain exactly where they were. Obviously, you know, like without PES, if the game crashes, everything is lost. But they've had bits and pieces of it locally in things like ships for a little while now.
Yeah, they tried it. And that, I mean, I think that's like one of the key things is that they tried it and it didn't work. And I saw a lot of people were upset about this in particular, as they kind of like went back and did some sleuthing and were like, well, you clearly knew that iCache wasn't working at this date and then didn't say anything until now about it. Or until whenever that we've made this shift, and it felt a little, it does feel a little malicious, and I talked to a few people and they were like, well, we gave you the information that we had at that time, and I'm like, okay,
yeah,
I'm not necessarily buying that, but sure.
I feel like people who are reacting that negatively towards iCache, I think it's kind of disingenuous because they're sitting there thinking, oh, we're waiting on iCache, which is like a back-end feature. And iCache worked for all intents and purposes. It's just it was too resource heavy, and so they were working on this alternative.
Yeah, and that's like the whole tone of this letter is that they have these things very similar to iCache. They're not going to know the they mentioned the edge cases a lot. They said the word edge case a lot. They're not going to know those edge cases until, like iCache, they tried to make it a thing.
Yeah. This is as far as they've gotten now, which is kind of cool. But as far as edge cases are concerned, I can think of things, like right now we have 50 player servers right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
With this system that they're putting in, if you have like let's say 12 servers worth of people all in the same place dropping items, what's going to happen? When you all log off, those items are supposed to be there, but the world and all the servers are supposed to be linked, and all those items are all going to that same entity, like PES, right?
Yep.
So eventually, will you start seeing other people's items pop up in front of you? What will happen in that situation?
Yeah,
I'm looking
there's
forward
like
to seeing
all
those
these
bugs.
weird things of like, how are they going to handle this stuff? Like,
Yeah.
are other people's items only going to pop up when you're not there? When there's no one around, or what?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of edge cases with stuff like this, because this is, I think, fairly unique to the way things would be working. But yeah,
Right. But anyway, I feel like I'm being too positive. All in all, I think it was a relatively positive kind of like a letter. It was long. I read it in one go, and I think it took up an hour to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I'm looking forward to listening.
I don't know how you can't be positive.
What do you mean
about this? Like, I don't know how you can't be positive about the article. There's like a few things to pick out, but most of the things that were said were things that people like doing things the way that people wanted them done. Like, like how can you be negative about it? There's very few things to point out and be like, that's crap. There was a lot of things that I looked at that were like, oh, well, that is a pleasant surprise. I was not expecting them to be like, hey, iCache didn't work. I was not expecting them to go, hey, by the way, guys, we're not going to put server meshing or PES onto the live servers. We're going to leave a PT open for literally 3 months. They've never done that before.
No, they haven't. They were very open about what they have planned. But I do think that there is one thing that I think people who do want to find like a thread to be negative about will use, and that's that Chris Roberts said all this.
Exactly. And that's the part, is nobody's gonna believe him. And I don't either. It doesn't matter, but the moment I see an ISC and they show the PES thing working the way they showed it in the studio, then the confidence rises a little bit. Right. And then you see it in the PTU, and then the confidence rises. That confidence won't go up until action happens. Words are still just words. And Chris is very good with saying a lot of words, but the action has never really happened in at least the way that he said it. Like, I think what we have in our game now obviously shows that some of his words are truth, and the game isn't, this complete disaster like it's been in years past. But it's
The big issue is that Chris is very optimistic, from things like 10 for the trim and stuff like that. He's always been a very big picture person, talking about what, he kind of wants, but not kind of when he wants. And whenever he gives a when, it's far too optimistic. I remember asking him back in Manchester 2015 about the Pisces and the constellation. And he said to me in person, a couple months maybe. Like, to my face.
Yeah, like, this is no news outlet. This is no like trying to sell ships or anything. Like, there's no reason to like give that high of a thing. He's just I guess he's just like that. I don't know.
Yeah, so I mean, it's refreshing to get him to say this kind of stuff, but in the past he's given like timelines and trajectories, and he's done the same here. I mean, like, he's also talked about things being more tactile in studio, with the live environment, having PES working. But Chris again has given us, answered the call. He's given us things like this where like we're waiting on a specific thing. So I think that now we just kind of have to wait and see. Will this be a change to the trend of, him being very optimistic about this project, which is his baby or whatever, or are we going to be waiting for 3.18 next year, like 2.6.3 happened?
I don't know if it'll be 2.6.3, but it could be. It could be. I mean, I think it'll be on the PTU longer than 3 months. Like, that's the thing. This is Chris Roberts who said 2 to 3 months.
Exactly.
So we'll see. We'll see. And I'm fine. Keep it there as long as you need it. Just keep updating 3.17. Go 3.17.3. I don't give a shit.
Yeah. I mean, I hate using up everybody's time. But like, there's one thing that I picked up from that, and that's that with 3.17.2, they actually want to have more missions in.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we haven't had like a fresh change in missions for the longest goddamn time, like since basically 3.0 came out. So
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that.
Agreed. It's been a lot of the same, and I'm wondering what that means. So we'll have to see. But yeah, I guess we'll call it here, Meyer, since it's been about a 15-minute call. That's where I kind of want to keep them. So
okay.
Thank you so much for calling. Is there anything real quick that's going on? Because guys, I don't know if you know, but Meyer streams on Twitch, has a YouTube channel, things like that. Do you have anything that's going on?
Shout outs. Okay, cool. So
shout outs.
I'm on my YouTube, Twitch, on youtube.com/Meyer. If you want to listen to this entire thing just read out, because I do that. I'm a voice actor and I do stuff like that. I've read the newsletter in case you want to just like listen to it in case you can't be asked to read it.
Oh, like an audiobook. Dude, that's such a good idea. Nice.
And here on Twitch, I've been doing a bit of Star Citizen, but not as much as I used to. I've been doing a bunch of Red Dead Redemption 2 role-playing stuff. I've been on a show called Kingmakers on Table Story, which is like a Dungeons & Dragons style game, as well as Spellwind, which is Dungeons & Dragons. All on Table Story on Twitch and stuff like that, if you like TTRPGs.
Nice. Well, thank you again, Meyer. I always appreciate talking to you, and I wish I did it more. I really do.
Me too.
Thank you, man. Bye-bye now.
Bye.
If I can get you out of here, because Lola's walking in front of the screen and I can't see. There we go. Bye, Meyer. All right, our next caller is Def Hammer, but I can't see the screen, so everything is a mess. Hello. All right, how you doing, man?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
I'm pretty good. So, what'd you think about the letter and anything, obviously, that I discussed? You can respond to things that we talked about with Meyer as well, if you'd like.
Thank you. The overall feel I got from this was it felt a little bit more grounded. Where it felt like Chris Roberts was a little bit more realistic than he normally is, which to me is kind of a breath of fresh air. And I'll be honest, I'm more of a technical person, so I'm going to maybe dig in a little bit more into the technical stuff, but I'll try to keep it down so it's relevant for, more other people's point of view.
Sure. I mean,
but overall,
the thing before you get into that, like, I am not, and right. I will not pay attention to the technical stuff, but It was in there and it was part of the letter, and some people clearly do care about those things.
Okay.
I'm just not one of those people.
Understood.
So the letter kind of was for everybody in different ways is the point I'm trying to make there.
All right, that's fine. All I was going to say was when I actually did some research on it and what the significance of all of this technical stuff, and it sums up to this. It feels like a large section server rewrite and a good chunk of netcode rewrite is what it felt like, and while it probably some of the stuff they're putting in is probably not going to decide, whether your bullet, whether it hits a person or not, it is going to handle anything that isn't perfectly real time. So like the gRPC is the same stuff that Google uses inside their network, which is the importance. It's very scalable and it's pretty fast.
Mm-hmm.
So it's probably going to be like the importance of that is like when you scan an asteroid, or you're purchasing something from or you're using the ASOP terminal, or you're requesting services. So anything that is, because that doesn't need to be perfectly real time. So it's that plus all the persistence stuff that's going to go on. And it's going to be used talking between the DGS, or what I like to call is the real-time simulation server, to the database. That's what it's going to be about.
Okay.
And that the sheer involvement of that is going to requiring rewrites of all the mechanics they do to use the system, which is what they're working on now. And it's going to be very messy. I would expect seeing, you put something in your inventory and it gets lost, or you suddenly put something in your and then like 10 things appear in it. That's the nature of a lot of the bugs I would expect looking at this. And on top of that, they actually mentioned in the line in there that so actually before I get to that, the most important thing you're going to want to pick on this is that they say they'll get 318 into Evocati by the beginning of Q3. I doubt it. I think it's going to be mid to late Q3, and then we'll get 3.18 at Christmas, to be perfectly honest. Okay. I think it's going to get pushed far because there's just so many things it touches, so many mechanics that are going to need to incorporate it, because that's why we haven't seen a lot of mechanics and things getting in.
Yeah, because they've been rewriting their stuff for a while now. So if your thought process is that all that stuff still needs to be done, though, it's been going on. So
I think there's going to be more.
Okay.
Because in the right now, what they're saying is in the timeline which I pulled up, is they say that they need to get the Deemkins across the company, and they started that at the beginning of this year, based off their little timeline that they posted.
Okay.
To start work on gameplay system changes that are required for the new persistent API. So I expect there to be, so a lot of the systems that we're using right now, why things are glitchy, is they're probably writing some of that stuff in to make it compatible. So that way they can more easily pull out Pcache and plug in this new PES system.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what's going on, right? Weren't a lot of the issues like streaming issues?
Yep.
Doesn't that have a lot to do with this in particular, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
yes, it is. And so, long story short,
it's going to be a rough few months.
It's going to be rough.
Yeah.
On a bright note, the one thing they did mention in here is actually a little bit of the server meshing, in that when they bring 4.0 up, what they're going to do is have one replicator layer and then 4 GGSs, which are the 4 simulation servers.
Mm-hmm.
So I would expect maybe a small bump in the increase of the number of people. So to give you an idea, we're running on technically 1 DGS right now, which is, the server with 50 people. We may be able, because they're shared between both Pyro and Stanton, we may see an actual bump. Maybe. Think like maybe from 50 to 100, or in that kind of range.
I mean, that would be a massive bump, I think.
It would be a massive bump. And theoretically, based on what it says, that may theoretically be possible. But again, you know how it works with development.
What's funny is it's a massive bump, but since the game world is so big, it wouldn't change anything.
Exactly.
It really wouldn't change anything.
So that's what they say in there. But anyway, I would say, getting back from the technical and more into the overall feel of things.
Yeah.
To me, what I enjoyed about this was the frankness. That, like I said, the more grounded and a little bit more of the frankness.
Yeah.
I'm disappointed that a lot of this wasn't mentioned earlier. But I feel like
that was like the first thing I said was like, it would have been nice if just these things were said earlier, but it feels like he was waiting for something to happen, because he wanted to share things, but he also wanted to share exciting things, and the exciting things weren't here yet. Because it would have just been typical Chris if he didn't have something finished. Like he legitimately waited to have something technically done and then put out the letter. So maybe they knew they were close, started writing the letter, and then once this thing was done, they debuted it in the office, it's cool. I honestly wish they waited a couple more weeks, but they can't because ship sale, and shared it with like a video and showed it actually working. But I'm sorry for interrupting.
Oh no, that's perfectly fine. The thing is, let me see if I get my train of thought. What was I saying last for a second?
We were talking tone, we were talking grounded, and you wish it was done earlier. Yeah.
So the reason I believe they did that is because if they did, it would hurt the money-making machine that is ship sales and getting people in. Because if they said, oh, iCache broke. It didn't work. We're going to have to come up with a new idea. Do you know how many people would freak out hearing that, unfortunately? I mean,
I would not be one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I would not be one of them, but you're right. I would be more freaked out that they said it broke.
Yeah.
I would be like, holy crap.
Yeah.
Honesty? What?
Mm-hmm. So the thing is, I know why they didn't say it until now, because I think they wanted something positive to go on, to be a positive to go on, attach it to protect their money flow, quote unquote.
Sure.
And it's unfortunate, but I guess since that's just kind of the reality is, I would have preferred if they were a little bit more frank and upfront with this, more all along the line. And keep in mind, they discovered iCache was not going to work back in 2020. So they've been sitting on this knowledge for basically over a year and a half.
How does that make you feel?
I don't like it, but also given the PR nature of it, I understand why.
Me too. I hate it though.
I hate it, but I understand why.
Because then they talk, because they have the PR part, but then they talk about how open they are and how nobody would open the doors like this and all those things. And it's kind of, if it makes all those statements feel so disingenuous, because I think part of it is this community is overwhelmingly supportive of the project regardless. I mean, the situation we're in now isn't good. But I think a little bit of honesty goes a long way. But that's just, that's me. That's something I'm very much, it's not a pet peeve, but being honest with people or just saying, hey, I screwed up is something I really value. And when people don't do that, it's something that sticks out to me that I don't like. It's a red flag to me. It's bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One of the things I hope with this letter and the coming of 3.4 is what I'm hoping is what I'm seeing here.
Mm-hmm.
Is what I'm going to call, like, this letter I hope is the beginning of the end of the beginning.
Yes.
And what I mean by that is these last 10 years, and I know it's really long, we kind of just been in this beginning.
100%.
Because I've always seen Star Citizen, and to give you an idea, I have a bit of an engineering background, mechanical engineering background, so I think a little differently. But one of the things is I think of like a house and a foundation. And what it felt like for the longest time is you had this partially poured in concrete foundation, and then you had a house strung up on scaffolding atop that quote unquote was a live service.
It has no roof.
It has no roof.
Yeah.
It's missing most of its walls, but it also has furniture in it. Like a couple pieces of furniture in it.
And it's getting wet. Bugs are in them. There's bed bugs. Yes, agreed.
Yeah. And what I'm hoping that once this is, now the thing they also said is the replication layer and stuff, because the thing that's special about software development is you can iterate over it. You're not just one and done like in other forms of engineering. Is this hopefully marks the end of basically the foundation being quote unquote done. I mean, or at least somewhat feature complete, that you now have a stable foundation that you can actually build the house properly on.
Yeah.
And
I love that example. The beginning of the end of the beginning.
Yeah.
It's a really good way to say it.
And that 4.0 should be the end of the beginning, basically. So right now we're in that transition. Now,
the end of the beginning, I think, comes way after 4.0, but that's where I would disagree. I think there's a lot of gameplay stuff that's still part of the beginning.
Well, to me, the reason I state that transition is, yes, there's a lot of gameplay stuff in, but it should move from we're dealing with all this low-level system stuff to now we can focus on gameplay and content.
Mm-hmm.
Because now we're not being held back by all the old hacks that we had to use. That's why I say it's the end of the beginning at around that point is hopefully the foundational stuff is mostly done, but you're probably right. It probably is later, but I will say that this letter is the beginning of the end of the beginning.
I agree.
And so what I'm hoping is after 4.0 comes in, we're going to start seeing content flow in more easily. We'll start seeing things because now they don't have to rewrite things they shouldn't have to rewrite so many things due to so many low-level systems being changed.
Yeah. I would say now if there's anything else that you want to touch on, I would start doing it relatively quickly because I am going to go through the calls quicker than normal. And so if you guys watch the show, I usually just let people go off, but
okay.
Yeah, I've been getting some comments of like the first couple callers being extra long is not what people agree, so
that's fine.
Yeah.
Also, to answer a question in the chat, I came in when it was a little bit before 42 million, and I only put in $60. That's your answer.
Yeah. So a lot of people immediately assume, oh, somebody talking about this and that. He must be in for 10,000. Yeah. No.
Oh no, I'm only in for $60.
Nice.
But anyway, to sum it up, I hope what I hope with this letter is it's a good beginning of a transition that we've been sorely needed. I hope it continues, but I'm going to warn you, this is going to be a bumpy road. I expect it to go worse than what was said in the letter. So I just want to make sure people are engaged for that.
Yeah, okay. True.
But anyway,
true.
I'll end it there. Thank you for allowing me the time to share my mind.
Dude, thank you for sharing it. I appreciate it.
All right.
Talk to you soon.
Speak to you soon. Bye.
Bye now. Our next caller is AR Foghorn. AR, can you hear me?
How are you, man?
I'm great. How are you?
Doing well. Hello from Tampa.
Oh, hello. Neighbor.
Hey, if they end up doing that Bar Citizen somewhere up here around, like maybe Orlando or something, you plan on coming up?
If it's Orlando, I really want to, yes. I'm just worried about getting off of work right now because somehow I was stuck at work like mega late, and it's summer, it's dead time, and we're still crazy busy. So I don't know what's going on, but I would love to. Yeah.
Awesome. We'll hope to see you there.
Especially if it's Orlando. I've been itching to go up there recently.
Hey, yep. Fantastic. Can't wait.
Yeah, man. But so the letter, what did you think? And whatever you want to touch on. I should have asked everybody this, what they found the most important topic that was shared, the thing, something that they really liked, something they maybe didn't.
Yeah, basically I think there were two major positives. First, that he did it.
Yes.
That it had been a long dry spell of not hearing from him. And that is such a double-edged sword when it comes to leading a large organization like that. If you're putting out a letter to the chairman every week, then it just becomes background noise and nobody's going to read it or listen to it, and you never have anything to talk about. Yeah. If you go too long, then people are like, what's happening with the project, and oh my God, is he dead, and all of that sort of silliness. So
and that was happening here. I just personally think that they kept him off camera because it was getting ridiculous. We would have a pillar talk, and this dude would be talking about owning land and making our own bases. And this was in 2019. And it's like, what is this guy talking about, dude? Like, why you're supposed to be talking about the pillar of this patch that's coming out. Like, what are you doing? So I was getting sick and tired of it, to be honest. And I was happy not seeing him. And this I'm happy with.
Agreed. But I think they may have swung a little bit, pendulum effect. They may have swung a little bit too far the other way.
For sure.
And that's such a hard thing to get right. As far as the content in there, I think it was fantastic that they actually came out and admit that, hey, iCache works, but we realized that the design was not going to scale up and handle the load. It works in small scale. It ain't going to work in big scale.
Yep.
And that they came out and admitted that, there's when you're talking about business communications or communicating from the top of an organization, honesty and it has to be it is paramount, because everybody will know when you're BSing, and so you can't ever try to hide those things. As far as to go back to how long it took to get them to actually do the letter and talk to us and tell us what we wanted to know. There's if you don't know, I'm retired military,
Okay.
and after a very, very long career, I did 27 years in the U.S. Air Force as a fighter pilot, and
Oh wow! Thank you for your
I
service.
well, thank you. It was a pleasure to serve. But the there's an old axiom amongst senior leadership that we would tell junior officers about. When you're going to come to me that, hey, there's something going wrong or there's a problem, don't just come to me with the headache. Come to me with the aspirin as well, or a couple of different options of aspirin. Like, hey, boss, this is happening. This went wrong. This isn't working. Here's option A, B, and C, sort of a thing. So I can see in retrospect, now that he's put the letter out, I can see that's probably why they waited to tell us to fess up that iCache wasn't going to work, because everybody noticed that they were missing all of the promised deadlines that, hey, we'll have iCache in by X, Y, and Z timeframe, and then it didn't happen, and those timeframes came and passed, and it didn't happen. I think he was waiting for them. Sorry, go ahead.
No problem. I mean, they shared a lot of this information at CitizenCon last year. We knew the shift happened. They called it something else. A different studio took it over. So the option A, B, or C was chosen, but it was never clearly communicated to us, was how I read it. I knew this happened. I knew it died. I've been making these claims on stream all the time. There was one studio in the UK that was talking about iCache, and now all of a sudden at CitizenCon, they're in Montreal talking about Entity Graph. And they're the same thing. So what happened? So I agree with you that they were waiting, but it's just curious, why wasn't it clearly communicated until now? It was kind of implied, but yeah, it was just a weird situation.
Oh, I missed that. That's interesting. When I watched that, I didn't hear Entity Graph is a replacement for iCache. I heard that it was
they didn't call it a replacement.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
But they did the same thing.
Yeah, I kind of.
So it was
that connection didn't get made in my head, so I apologize.
It's all good. It was almost like it got renamed, was how it looked like to me. And I would ask, a Jake or another dev in the chat. I was like, is that persistence? And they would be like, yes, because iCache was persistence, right? They went together, and I was like, oh, well, that's weird. Why is this random studio that they literally just invested in and are hiring a bunch of people now working on this thing? Did it not work well with the UK team, and now this other team thinks they can do it? It was just interesting, but it doesn't seem to be exclusively being worked on in Montreal, because they said teams in the UK and Montreal were both actively working on it. I think in the letter, if I'm not mistaken. If not in the letter, it was mentioned at CitizenCon or mentioned somewhere else. So I don't know, but it was weirdly communicated, just to the community.
I had that completely wrong in my head. I didn't realize back then when they said that. Now I recall them saying that at CitizenCon. But it did not make that connection in my head that was one was a replacement for the other. So
I didn't exactly either, but it felt that way. So I started asking the questions, but there was no answers. There's no clear answers, at least.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know. What did you? This was what you liked. What else did you like? What didn't you like? And what is it? What has it done for your confidence in the project going forward? There's a lot that came out of this thing.
As far as I'm probably the wrong person to ask that about confidence, because I do a lot of speculative investing anyway. So when I backed way back when in the 2.0 days, when Chris made the pitch in 2012, I was still active duty, and I was deployed forward into the CENTCOM AOR, and was unable to do anything about it. But had I had the capabilities back then, I would have been one of those dudes who handed him $10,000 up front for a share in the company.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? Because I was like, okay, this is going to be crazy. This is going to be reminiscent of NASA in the 60s when they told, President Kennedy, there's no way we can get to the moon. The technology doesn't exist yet. And he told them, well, you better go invent it, because I'm going to go out on this podium and I'm going to, and then he made the famous speech about, by the end of the decade, we're going to walk on the moon. And then they went and did it, So I saw a lot of that in the original pitch, is that this technology, or this game that he's fantasizing, the technology does not exist. So they're going to have to reach forward into the future and invent it.
I'm glad you didn't do that. I'm glad you didn't do the 10,000, because we have one of those guys in our Discord, and I think it rotted his brain. I'm not sure. It's
you shouldn't be investing that kind of money unless you can lose it and not care.
Oh,
so
I don't think that has anything to do with it. He's just like a conspiracy theorist now. It's great. It's like some of the best content on our Discord.
So I don't get emotionally positive or negative for communications like this. The setbacks that they've had, I don't get discouraged from it. I don't get frustrated. When the failed game mechanics and stuff like that get me to the level of being frustrated with Star Citizen, I just put Star Citizen down and I go play something else for a month or two and then come back to it. And when I've got a renewed zeal for it
with the game.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Just walk away. If the game's pissing you off, go to your therapist and take Minecraft with you and show on Minecraft where the bad Star Citizen touched you. So, but as far as the letter, like I said, the positive fact is that they fessed up that iCache, but they also had, hey, here's where it's going now, and this seems to be working, and we do have a demonstrable tech demo that worked in the lab, which is super positive. The rest of the stuff just hit me as rah rah sis boom ba. Hey, we got all this great stuff, and hey, more pyro, the road to 4.0. The departure from their previous quarterly release timeline and say, hey, we're going to do a 13.7.2 and we're going to do a 3.18 and then we're going to go 4.0, I think was also a very positive thing that came out and say that it's going to create flame wars. People are they're going to rage. But that's just part of the Chris Roberts factor. I think back in the Wing Commander days and the Privateer and Armada and Freelancer days, when he was a little more doe-eyed as far as what big development companies in Hollywood and his movie and all that, when he managed to leverage his success to get those doors open to where he could go direct a movie and all that kind of stuff. And then the backlash that happened and the brutal negative feedback that he got from a lot of that stuff and his negative experience with EA games and all of that sort of thing. I think it was sort of a little bit of a nice guy getting beat up by the system. And so now a lot of it, I think, is he's pretty snake bit about taking a risk with communications and everything until he's absolutely sure. So that's just my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, seems fair.
Yeah,
seems fair.
Yeah, he's being in the position he is doing a project like this. You're at a damned if you do, damned if you don't. If things go well, you're going to have negative detractors. If they don't, you're going to have negative detractors. So you it's a very rough road to navigate. So
sure.
Overall, I thought the letter was positive. There was a lot of fluff in there going rah rah sis boom ba, and I think that's really the only negative I had from it. So
yeah,
thank you, brother.
But also have to,
Yep,
at the same time.
You gotta.
All right. Well, I don't know if there's anything else. You still got a little bit more time if I'm doing the counting on when you got here.
I don't care so much about the time, man. I don't need to hear myself talk more than I already do.
I hear you. I just didn't know if you had anything else you wanted to talk about. So you're good. I appreciate your call, Foghorn, man. Thank you so much.
Dude, it's wonderful getting to chat with you and to meet you for the first time verbally.
Hopefully in Orlando. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll hope to see you there, brother.
All right, bro. Talk to you soon.
Ciao.
Bye. Our next caller is Johnny Morgan, definitely a regular on the show, so you guys might be familiar. Hey, Johnny, how are you?
Good. How am I sounding?
Pretty good. A little low. I'll turn you up, though. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, cool. Good show so far. Meyer stole most of my thunder.
Okay. As the first caller typically does.
Yeah, I liked his content, though. What I was going to talk about here, and I've been really impressed by Chris on this one and CIG as a company in general. So I'm going to just touch points a little bit less on Star Citizen, the game and the development side of it, and more on CIG, the company itself. Chris on this one, I was really impressed by the humility of it all. And the company's growth too. So they gave us some metrics there, and I was really surprised by that. Like, I suspected their growth was really good. I think I've talked to you about that before.
Yeah.
But this is the first time they released some metrics in a while, and that they 1 million new accounts and 500,000 sales out of it, right? Like, that's a 50% conversion rate at the bottom of their funnel. That is really impressive, and I'm very thankful that they haven't gone super arrogant or ego, right? Gone massive ego on it. This was really reassuring to me that they're moving out of that early startup phase. And I know we rip on Chris a lot, but he was in pitch mode. And I like what Foghorn, right? AG Foghorn?
Yeah.
I like what he was talking about, AR Foghorn, sorry. When he was talking about the investing side and stuff, that's very on point with the development of a company and less of the IP that company owns, which Star Citizen is. It's just an intellectual property of Cloud Imperium Games, and they're building Cloud Imperium Games. And I know we say 10 years, but not everyone was hired on day one. So it takes a while to get there, but they really do seem to have turned the threshold. And it is making me much more comfortable that Chris is getting out of the mindset of, I have to go around and prove to everyone that my idea and vision will work. And he seems to move into, and like you were saying, that he was waiting for confirmation. I agree with that. I think he was waiting on confirmation to be reasonably assured of what he says is going to be delivered now. Like, he's trying to get away from I'm a startup, I'm pitching, I'm trying to raise capital, I'm trying to sell everyone on my vision that may or may not work. And he's gotten to the state now where he's like, okay, I feel like we've hit that. And now I'm going to try to position myself maybe more as a thought leader in the industry, which he should be positioning himself as, because he absolutely is, because CIG actually has something special here. And I'm going to try to be quick on this one. Morph's video was fantastic. I always love Morph's energy and his positivity. I know people rip on him for it too, and getting out of the honeymoon phase, but I really appreciate that viewpoint from him. And I would like to see it preserved. It's really nice, but it's his own unique view, and yours too, though. Encountering the two of them together got me thinking about stuff. And this is kind of like that tertiary collaboration that happens just across content in general. Like, I watch your stuff, I watch more stuff, and it gets me thinking about stuff. And it was thinking more about what is the core pain point that CIG has actually solved in this industry. It's clearly not Star Citizen, right? Like, it's clearly not the space sim genre, blah, 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 because it's a shit show to play, yet we still engage in it.
Why would they have to solve something? Like, what?
Well,
I'm confused why that is a thing. Like, don't they just have
okay, so I'll roll back then.
Like, just make a game. I'm confused. Like,
pain points and...
Yeah, what do you mean by that?
So that's product management and product development. So when you're building a value proposition, the value prop design, which I've referenced before, is a great book, great canvas to use. You look at a customer profile and say, okay, what pains are they experiencing? A pain point. What gains are they looking for? And what jobs do they do every day? And then you get really detailed on, you take a bunch of stickies, right? You just start writing it out and start trying to figure it out. And then you try to roll it up. And then from there, across that map is the other side of game creators. Hey, what can I do that's a game creator for them? They want this game. What can I do to create it? What's a pain reliever? Everyone tells you to focus on that because that's what motivates people to convert a sale, right? That's the huge one. That's why I said pain points. What is the actual pain point in the industry that they're solving that gamers fucking love? Sorry, excuse my language. That gamers love, right? And they're attracted to it. Like, a 50% conversion rate is insane. Like, that's insane in a funnel, of a sales funnel. Usually you drop down into the below 30, 25 and stuff like that. You're doing really good. And when I talk about a sales funnel, it's like, someone coming in and seeing a Morph video, and then they go check out the website, then they sign up for a free fly, and then, maybe they play for a bit, and then they convert,
and then they have an interest.
Buy a ship. Yeah, then they have an interest. Yeah, their sales funnel is well developed. I give them kudos on that. But they do need to dial it back, and I think they're trying to do that. But in this side, I'm going to put a video together. I'm going to try to get some data on it and try to really do a quality analysis of it. But I really feel like they've hit the nail on the head within the industry. And I think it's mostly around the relationship between the consumer, us gamers, and our producers. And we're really pissed at our producers. So much so that we backed games like DayZ early on that was trying to do this new relationship. Didn't quite work out, but we still got a really good game out of it. Like, I was just watching Smoke and Shroud link up again. Like, just check it out on YouTube if you haven't seen the video. It's freaking amazing.
Yeah.
Like for like an ancient game now too, right? So I think CIG's hit the nail on the head. And I think they're starting to realize that the relationship that they've developed with their community is the core value of this company, and they really do need to focus on it. And I think a lot of the influence, Chris has, matured amazingly as a founder, amazingly as a leader within the company, and it's really hard to do. Like, this is where a lot of startups fail, right? Because the leader founder can't let go of that early mode. Like, I just saw one recently. The guy could not get out of pitch mode, and he didn't have to, right? And it ultimately led to the ending of his value prop because he couldn't pivot into what the market really wanted him. So I'm interested to see how this goes, and they have to continuously innovate in this space, and I think they will. Like, anyway, I don't want to go too long on it. I have been really impressed. I thought
we could touch on that for a moment. Like, and this is very related to the letter. He goes through and shares how Star Citizen is different from every other game, how it has all these things that not everybody else has, right? And the experience you have is unlike any other in Star Citizen, and that is impossible to be a lie. It is just a fact. You do not get an experience 100%. Like you do in any other game other than Star Citizen. 100% true, right? And that's where I question, like, do you need to innovate that much if you already have so far that you're already innovating? Now it's just, I think that, like, that's my argument always, is that we don't need the innovation anymore. You've already done it. Now you take what you know works with the innovation you've done, and you have a fantastic game.
So yes, I agree with that. I don't think they need to innovate within their IP, their intellectual property.
Okay.
Star Citizen Squadron 42. I meant at a company level, being an innovative company, CIG being the innovative company that they are, and they've done a really good job
making the game in real life in their studios. Nobody's touched on how fucking ridiculous that is.
Oh, what do you mean? Sorry.
Have you seen the pictures of what they want to make their studios look like? And do we not think that that's not a giant waste of fucking money? And then everybody in my
you're
comments
talking about startup culture now, man.
Dude,
it is so dumb.
Fucking stupid.
Blame the Valley for that. Blame the goddamn Valley for that. That is Silicon Valley making these stupid startups that have to attract talent. And no.
Like, here's the thing: is that everybody was making that comment
so dumb,
too.
Man.
Everybody was making that comment in that video, and they were saying, like, yeah, this is how you attract talent. Like, okay, great. Nobody's saying the studio has to be ugly. It doesn't need to be Crusader. It doesn't need to be, like, my studio doesn't need to look like it lives in the Stanton system in my game. That was one of the stupidest things I've ever seen. And again,
I don't disagree.
Do you want back,
like one of those,
like, holy shit, do you want backer money to be spent on that stuff? I don't care if it was $15 of wood to make that stuff happen. That's $15 that I would rather be spent on a coffee machine and creature comforts for the developers, not looking like that. That's insane.
But there's things you gotta do, and that's one of those stupid things. And totally blame Go do a video on all the stupid offices in San Francisco, right in the Valley. Like, this one's really nice and tame compared to some of the stuff you'll find out there. It is ridiculous.
Jesus Christ!
And that would be more of a startup cultural thing, I would say. And then there's I get why they did it. I agree with you completely, though. But they kind of have to for the presentation layer of the company and all that type of stuff. And if you have, like, let's say a news agency come in to film everything, right? Like, it's all that stuff. Like, eventually, he does have to position himself as a thought leader within it and less of the running the day-to-day operations. And I think he is stepping a bit more away from that, which is the right thing to do, because the CEO's job is not to run the company. It's to be the visionary individual that goes out there and pitches the company to the rest of the market and the industry to raise capital. That's all he does. That is the sole job of a CEO. It's why they get paid so much, because they know people that will give them money, and they have proven over and over again, if you give me money, I will give you more money back. And that's what every founder is. That's why you get that stupid juicer. This is what actually I meant to bring up before. We can rip on them for raising what, $500 million now. There was a stupid IoT juicer that raised $140 million just on the name of the guy alone. Everyone ripped on it. You can look back on YouTube for it, right? Everyone's like, oh, I can squeeze juice myself, right? It failed, obviously, but that's a great example. I don't remember what the juicer was. It was an IoT juicer that like had it would plug into the internet so it could tell you if your juice was expired and would squeeze the juice out of the package for you. Everyone just ripped on it. It was hilarious.
What?
It instantly failed. Oh, it was so dumb. I'll send you the link in Discord from it. It's just a piece of history on startup history. And an example of like $140 million raised for an IoT juicer. It does not seem like CIG's raised that much money in comparison when you start looking at other things. I know we forget to see the forest from the trees a bit sometimes in our community because like we are here for the IP. Like I'm here for Star Citizen, not really CIG.
I'm here for the game.
Right? We all mostly here. Yeah, I'm here for the game. I'm not playing it a ton right now because it's like what Foghorn was talking about. Whatever, or sorry, that guy before him was talking about the backward compatibility. He was good engineering talk too. The backward compatibility issue obviously affected the PU's performance because it was fine until they dropped the PTU and then things went really squirrely. So I've been playing a bit, but it's been difficult. But I don't mind. I can wait it out. I like what he's talking about. The separate PTU, 3 months. Yes. Slow it down a bit. It seems like you're getting those tech pillars. Let's move forward. Let's develop the company further. And it looks like they are.
Yeah.
Right? They have low turnover. They have great people. Chris is learning and being influenced from those people. Those, like, he in turn influenced them. That's a very healthy, mature company. He's matured as a leader. Damn, it's good. So I'm going to wrap it up there. I want to give Morris some time. Poor lad. He's been waiting and he is late there. So great talking to you, Mike. Thanks for giving me the platform again, bro. And like your content has been top notch lately. I love the second channel doing the reaction stuff. Like everyone's growing really well. I've really been appreciating that everyone's sticking it out and doing it. Also, chat, give Meyer a ton of love. He is underappreciated in this community and he is super talented. So anyway, that's I love you guys.
Meyer's king.
So
Later,
good.
Johnny.
And anyway, I could talk about him in a separate podcast.
All right. I'll talk to you soon, John. Bye.
Love y'all.
And our next caller is Morphologist. He's been waiting a while. Hello, Morph.
Hello.
He waited so long, Discord kicked him.
Yeah, I was like, what are you doing here? You're not here for anything. Get out. Nobody cares about your opinion or anything like that.
Yeah, so Architect reviews CIG office when?
I know, right? Well, I actually would love to go and tour those studios, and I asked C about it, but it's still a little whiles away before they're going to actually be done with it. So, maybe next year when things improve a bit and there's no like 14-day, or actually now it's down to 7 days for Taiwan, 7-day quarantine if we're coming back into the country. I'll consider it.
They should just make an office in Florida where it's not even here. It doesn't exist.
Yeah, like no, as long as you ignore it, it doesn't exist, right?
Exactly.
Just like timelines.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I obviously yesterday watched your reaction and your post. We talked about it a little over Discord of whether or not you were even going to post a video, to be honest. And I'm glad you did. This is like, it's sad that a letter from the person who makes the game is like kind of a monumental thing for the game that like you cover, but in this, I feel like we're going to remember this letter. I feel like we're going to remember this shift. And I think that this is, they were at a crossroads of where this game could go and what was going to happen. And I feel like they chose the right path, not the wrong one. And through this letter, it really showed that, but I don't know what you thought. I mean, obviously we talked about it a little bit, but, or you talked about it a bit in your video, but
I did.
Yeah, we can definitely respond to the things I've said about what I thought, and all that. So,
well, yeah. First of all, I definitely think that this is going to be one of those letters that we go back and reference in the future.
Absolutely.
We're going to either say, "Wow, he told the truth," or we're gonna kill him for kind of being a bit disingenuous, or maybe not being as realistic as we hoped he could have been. But going to the part that you talked about in my video about being realistic, you felt that I missed it. I actually, in my mind, didn't think I did, but actually, when you edit a video and you go back and you re-record so many times, sometimes you don't realize that you had a thought that you wanted to put in and then you forgot to put it in. It happens, especially with these really long videos. Yeah, and I actually realized I omitted an entire segment I had originally recorded after I did it, but it was good enough, and I was like, it just kind of gets my point across, and it'll just have to be good for now. I already spent like 2 days on it, and that was ridiculous. So, no, I do write my stuff down. But sometimes, like when you're,
it doesn't matter.
Sometimes when you're recording and you're speaking the things that you wrote down, you realize that there are things that you wanted to say that you didn't write down that are really important, because it kind of speaking helps your thought process in a way.
Yes.
So yeah. Anyway, I to the point here, I definitely agree with what you were saying in your video on my video about Chris being really like realistic here and kind of talking about how it's dependent on a lot of the testing of these features, and I thought that was really refreshing to see him do. And I especially liked how they were really realistic about the testing length that they were going to have to go through, and that it could stretch on beyond what they imagined, which is currently like 3 months. That's what I thought was really great, because it made me feel a little bit more confident in them thinking about the timeline for when they want to start testing this stuff and get it to us into the live environment. So yeah, no, I think that's what you were saying, and that's really what I was thinking as well.
Yeah, for sure. I just think there's so many things that I've just been so frustrated with over the last few years, and there's so many of those things that I feel were addressed in the letter. And it makes you, I don't care whether or not I feel heard. That doesn't matter to me, but it feels like it just instills more confidence in me than I've had in a while. And that's, there's nothing, like, it drives me insane that people are making comments on the video like, oh, so positive. I really appreciate it. I usually don't appreciate your videos, or the other way around. I came here for the salt. Why aren't you being salty? It's like, guys, like, we can only speak for ourselves and the way we feel in that moment. That's it. Like, that's all we can do.
Right.
We can't, what do you want us to be? Do you want us to be actors, or do you want us to be ourselves? And I'm just going to tell you what I thought about the letter. That's it. And in general, if you've watched my content and the things that I've been salty about, like, most of those things are being worked on and being developed, or there's been comments from them on, that's the way we would like to do it, right? And there's not a lot for me to complain about in the letter or with the current game that much.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that they've got their focus in the right place. They've pushed off doing an in-person CitizenCon with a keynote, and I think that's great for the focus of the developers right now to get back to working on getting Squadron 42 out and getting the next patch out with the PES, which is a huge milestone for Star Citizen's development. But like, I kind of want to use this opportunity to also address something that I often see in my comment section, you've probably heard about this, is like, oh, Morph is so negative, yet he's so positive in this video. But I don't think I really was, and I'm not sure if it was emphasized as much as I thought it was at the end of the video. And that's that I actually am really confident in what Chris is saying about this technology, like, being tested this year and maybe even going online, but I'm really skeptical of its initial impact, because like with a lot of the technologies that CIG has worked on in the past, like server object container streaming, for example, we didn't see the benefits of that technology until several patches later, when we started getting more planets and missions and systems to work with. So I think that we will get it, but I don't see how it's going to substantially change what we're experiencing right now. I just kind of see it's going to be like, we're going to be still playing the same missions with the same bugs that we have for the past 3 to 4 years. Just like 3, everyone was like, oh, you're so positive about 3.17. But I mean, look at what I wasn't really. I was just saying what the features were, and that's the thing that, I make videos about what the features are in the patch, but if you really look at those features, it hasn't really impacted the game that much. It's just added a fresh flavor on the same missions we've been playing for literally 4 years.
Yeah, and
so
that's what everyone's like with you, I've noticed, and I just like see tweets about it and shit still too. Like, they're grasping on the video where you said that nothing tangible is going to be coming this year.
Yeah.
And then they're like, look, this is tangible, and I don't think they like understand the point you were trying to make.
No.
Is like
I don't think they did.
These are the things that make the tangible things possible later.
Right.
Right? But this doesn't mean that it's tangible yet. Like, yes, will we maybe be able to see persistence in the year 2022? Yes, maybe. Does that change the way that you will be playing the game completely in 2022? No. The way, like, no, of course not. Like, come on, dude.
Yeah, I mean, like, here's one example that I thought of the other day. So let's say we get the cargo refactor in 3.18, right? And we have persistence, and it's working perfectly. And you blow up a cargo ship, all right? And it drops all its cargo. Mm-hmm. All right, now how are you going to find that cargo?
Yeah.
Because it's going to get scattered all over the place, first of all. And if you lose the spot, like if you fly for just a second, you're a kilometer away and that stuff's no longer rendering in for you anymore. And there's no way for you to scan that in. And they're not talking about scanning tech for scanning now cargo, are they? I would not expect them to add that feature in. We are going to encounter so many issues with this technology that I think for more or less it's going to be the same experience. It'll be cool to see stuff stick around, but I mean, do we even know if they're going to add in persistent habs and hangers in that patch? No, they've not talked about it. So I wouldn't assume that they will have it in 3.18.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. This community is tough to deal with at times. They're so fantastic and they're so supportive and they're so amazing. And then they are so quick to just snap and go crazy. It's tough. So, yeah.
I mean, I can't be too upset with them, though, because really, development's really hard. When you think about simple things like, I want to be able to go over there and grab that bottle, right? I want to perform this simple action. Well, doing that in the game is actually like there's a lot of different people who are working on that mechanic to make that happen. And it's very complex, right? Yeah. So when we talk about these new tech things coming online, people just assume that it includes these features that seem very logical. But it's not, it doesn't really work that way. It's like the tech allows it to happen, but it doesn't necessarily make any impact yet. Like when we got those stupid push carts. Like it was basically we had a stupid cart that didn't work. Now we have gurneys. So the gurneys still don't work, but you can see what they were trying to do with that tech, right?
Yeah.
Oh, and the boxes and the Rex too. Like you can pull the boxes and the Rex if you don't have a multi-tool. So yeah. Anyway, that I'll get off my soapbox here. That's really like the big thing I wanted to talk about. There's one other thing though. One other thing that you touched on in your last conversation I thought was really interesting. You talked about how you're worried about them spending too much money on the new studio.
Yes.
And I thought that was an interesting take. So I actually think that the design of the studio is a great way to attract talent to the studio, to try to get people interested in coming. The thing
but as somebody who works in the industry, does it have to look like Crusader, or could it be a very nicely designed, normal looking fucking studio? Like I'm not saying don't spend money on it. It just what the fuck is that? It's clearly not my taste. Like maybe that's it's ridiculous.
I understand. Dude. I understand. I think it's actually it makes it pretty cool. But the thing that I was more concerned about was learning about like where is CIG in terms of the industry, in terms of like the turnover rate and the pay. Like I'm very excited that they're making a really cool studio that's got a lot of stuff for like the people who work there to have a very comfortable working environment. I mean, we can debate whether or not you like the design of it or the style of it, but I think that it looks like a nice environment to work, right? It's nicer than most people's offices. My question is like, are we paying them higher than industry standard? Because as somebody who backs the project, my hope would be that the people who work for CIG like work for one of the best, if not the best, companies in the industry. Because the industry right now for gaming, for like game development, is the worst of all the tech industries. It has the highest turnover rate, the lowest pay, the longest working hours, the worst overtime pay. Like that's really, really depressing because they work just as hard. It's just that the stuff that they do doesn't necessarily turn into the most profitable thing, like maybe an app. But then, the gaming industry is also a multi-billion-dollar industry. And if we're paying CIG so much, I would hope that some of that would go to retaining the best of the best and keeping them there, wanting them to stay and continue to work on the project through its life cycle. Because, when people leave and have to pass on that information to other people, things get left behind. The thought process gets broken up, and that can extend the development time because there's just so much catching up to do.
I don't know how common knowledge it is, because I feel like the last time that they spoke about the way they pay their employees was like this was way before your time. You may remember this, but Reverse the Verse, where they were downstairs in a basement and it was just devs talking like pretty openly. I feel like I remember them saying that like they lose people to the bigger companies, and I feel like they've said this even more recently, but I don't know if they pay well. And that's where that hatred of the studio comes from me, is if that is still true, then this is spending that is not necessary. And when you have this game and this ambition, well, the only way to complete it is by getting the best talent. And the only way to get the best talent is to pay them, not to make Crusader in a fucking studio. It just makes no sense to me. But I don't.
Well, yeah, I mean,
it's pure speculation. I don't know if it's true or not.
It's pure speculation.
It's only
I don't know if it's true either.
2014, because I remember we lost somebody to Blizzard that everybody loved, and they made that comment. It was like his name was Travis, I think.
And there's one other thing that's worth noting about the industry in general, and that's it is very difficult in the game development industry to gain seniority in a development studio, because if you've been there for a while, there are people above you, and it's hard to be promoted past them without causing issues with just like relations within the company. And so what happens a lot of the time, and I have a couple friends in the industry, one that he was a pretty close friend, who, when I asked about like why did you switch from he was working for I think it was called Turtle Rock, or I can't remember. It was the company that was working on Black Ops 2. And it was a really good paying job, and he was like one of the lead environment artists for it, and he loved it. And I asked, why did you quit and go somewhere else? And it wasn't because he didn't like the job. It was because if he left and he went somewhere else, he would immediately be upgraded to another level of seniority. And so instead of being a junior environment artist, he becomes a senior environment artist. And the pay bump is like huge. So there's also that factor in the industry. So I think it's important for us to talk about this, but it's also important for us to be clear that we're not saying for sure that CIG doesn't pay their employees well.
We don't know.
We don't know. We just want to say we want them to pay their employees the best, because if you're doing like a really cool studio and it's one of the biggest grossing games of all time, then I hope that the developers could be paid some of the highest wages of all time for a gaming studio. So that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, agree 100%. And that's where that anger came from about that part of the letter. It was just like, is this necessary when it's clear that pay is the most important thing? And if we were struggling, I mean, they've talked about struggling to find good engineers and like all these things, and it's like, would it be that hard if we paid really, really well? So I don't know.
Engineers are the hardest though right now. And just in terms of like the entire tech industry, finding competent engineers that want to stay is very, very difficult. So, I mean, it's not going to be, all of those guys want to go and work on bigger, high paying jobs outside of the game development industry. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not saying the people who are working for CIG aren't talented. Obviously they are, if they're developing this crazy PES tech, but it must have been very hard to find these guys. So I hope that they pay them whatever it takes to retain them so they can keep working on it.
Exactly. Yeah, 100%. But yeah, I don't know. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on?
No, I think I pretty much said everything I wanted to, and I think we had a really good conversation. So thanks, Mike. Yeah,
dude. I don't know why, but I just came back to the moment where we found each other in game the other day. That was fun.
Yeah, that was so random, dude. Oh my
Right?
gosh, that was really funny.
Yeah.
I immediately recognized you. It's just like, that's SaltEMike.
Yeah. Oh, I recognize the voice too. So that's why I had some fun with it. It was great. But I really hope that event turns out well, because that has so much potential. So if you guys don't know what we're talking about, there's going to be an event happening soon, and we checked out the location. Morph has a video on it on his channel. It's very exciting. Very exciting.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's one thing that does give me hope for this year is the events. And I don't really understand the comments I get in my YouTube sometimes about like they shouldn't be wasting time on these temporary events. Dude, this is the game. This is like what I'm here for, events and stuff. You know, like, what are you trying to play? Because I don't know what game you're here for.
Yeah, I mean, all you have to do is they're just platforms, right? So you can make more. You could do things with those platforms, even if it is a temporary event. It doesn't have to be temporary. It could be built into another thing later on. It's
Yeah.
That's
exactly,
a silly comment to me, but yeah.
It is a silly comment.
Most YouTube comments are, what can we do?
Most are. Agreed.
Yeah. It's very tough. I always read the comment section, but it is very tough to do some days, guys. It is very tough to do.
Yeah, it leads you down a dark path, and it's sometimes, you know, you don't know until it's too late that you've gone down the dark path. Or, the deep end.
All right, Morph, we'll let you go, dude.
Amen. It's been a pleasure. I'll talk to you later.
All right, buddy. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, and our final caller for the day, I know we have somebody else in the queue, so Hitman, if you can hear me, this will be the final, because I don't want the show to go over about an hour and a half, is Zane. Hello, Zane.
Do you hear me?
I hear you now, yeah.
Okay, fine. So, long time no see. It's been a while since I was on the podcast.
It has.
But it's been a really good episode. Lots of good callers, and it's very hard to add to it. I'll try to be brief, though.
Okay.
So, over the past year and a half, I've become more negative towards the project.
Okay.
That being said, I like the email, Chris Roberts letter.
What do you like?
Mostly, like why did I like this one, and why is it different, in my opinion, than the other 5 times CR said us, hey, server meshing is coming in a year. Mostly 2 reasons, and those are this is the first time I think in CIG's history that they decided, in order to focus on delivering something, first to not do a keynote and kind of to downsize SitCon, but that was also last year due to COVID, so it's not only that one. But the keynote part is huge because it means they are so near to, supposedly near to have something tangible for us, that they said, screw it, we don't need to fabricate hype. Let's use that time to build the actual thing and deliver it to players. So
Absolutely.
That is a very good sign, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, and the thing that the point that I really tried to hammer home, and I want to make sure, just in case like it wasn't clear in the video that I made about the letter, was that they first started out with the amount of players that are playing, how many active users, that they're growing, that they're not just growing, but people are staying and playing, and that shifted the mentality on a lot of these things, because they don't need to do this stuff if the game is doing it for them. And the game is not good. It's not great. It's got its issues, but it's good enough where they can shift the focus from outside of the game experience to making the game experience better. And I think that's what my huge takeaway from the letter was, what they went, whoa, people like what we have now. It's growing on its own. We don't need to do this stuff as much as we did before. We can focus a lot more. We don't, like, I feel like if this was 2 years ago, they could not make the decision that they made today, or like recently, because they would have felt that they had to do a CitizenCon to keep the project alive, to keep funding coming in. The game is funding itself.
Yeah,
it's crazy that it is. It blows my mind that it is in so many ways.
Me too.
There's so many problems with it.
I wonder if
does.
Odyssey's failure had a part into this, because I don't see how people can play the game as it is right now. I mean, I see why you can play it because it's kind of your job. But
like
as a
me
player,
personally, yeah.
Yeah.
Listen, I mean, I'll be perfectly honest with you. Would I play Star Citizen as much as I do today if I wasn't a content creator for the game? No, I've said this a million times. People watch my stream when I play this game. People don't watch my stream when I don't. So I like streaming. It's fun to interact with people. Funny things happen in chat. I love that. That's my favorite thing about streaming. So I stream the game where that happens the most. That's it. The YouTube stuff I find very, very fun and creative. And again, it's a very similar thing where if I made a video about something else, probably nobody would watch it, right? So it's that mentality is 100% true. I play the game because I feel in a way like I have to, but it's more because I enjoy the content creation side of things. But I don't blame anybody for just not playing it. You know, if I was in your position, I wouldn't either. I'd play Stellaris 24 hours a day. I'm obsessed with it, and it drives me nuts that I don't have enough time to play it.
Yeah, and like the other thing which I liked about the ladder is for the first time they decided to make the live environment more stable and run longer PTUs, which I think this should have been done perhaps like 2 years ago or anyway sooner, because this is how it should work. We should have a live environment with the stable features and the PTU with the new stuff. And whenever they think the PTU is stable enough, they should merge to live. And
Yeah.
it should not necessarily be a 3-month cycle. Like maybe we should there could be a patch that stays live for 1 year. And if you want to play the live with the old features, you go there. If you want to take the risk and the rage and the Salt, you go on PTU and experience the new stuff with all the bugs that come from it. But yeah, like this, I think was the good stuff. I will lie if I said my copium tank hasn't been filled a little bit by the ladder. But at the same time, I think there is still something, like there are still many reasons to be skeptic about it. Many callers talk about the iCache, and I personally disagree when you say they said at SitCon that iCache was canceled.
They didn't.
Yeah, but at best they implied it, but I don't
Yes.
think they even did that. Why is it? First, when CIG devs talk about iCache, they said it was like a number of services that will handle the persistence for the game, and a number
so this
of
felt like another one. Gotcha. Okay.
no, but even like the databases that they will use would be different kind of databases, like NoSQL, relational, based on the type of data, and to create caches to optimize searching and writing to it. So when they say, "Oh yeah, now we're using GraphQL, graph database," it's like, okay, sure, maybe they already did that for iCache. And for the name change, CIG uses weird name for literally everything. So
True.
they could have made a new name because, I don't know, maybe entity, what is it called now? Entity cache?
Persistent entity streaming.
No, but like the database thing, like
entity
whatever,
graph.
it doesn't matter.
Entity
Entity
graph.
graph, yeah.
Yep.
Like they come up with names for literally everything they do, so maybe they just rebranded it.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish they said it sooner.
Yeah, of course. But if you don't mind me hopping in there for a second, the name change was less of the thing that caught my attention than an entire team who was working on in the UK, headed by Clive. That was the guy who would come on camera and try and set expectations correctly all the time. To the only people communicating about server meshing and iCache being mostly from Montreal. You had the one guy from the UK, Paul Rendell, I think, and then you had the rest was from Montreal. So it was clear that to me that something changed. There was a shift, but I didn't know exactly what it is. So to clear that situation up a little bit, I'm not smart enough and I don't understand. I'm not familiar with any of these database things or SQL. Or I used an SQL thing back when I was playing poker, but I don't know much about it. And or SQL, I guess it's called, right? But I don't know much about it. And I wouldn't have picked up on any of that stuff. The big thing that I picked up on was there was a team in Montreal, and then, or there was a team in the UK, and then all of a sudden it was mostly in Montreal. So what happened? And then obviously everything took super long, so something happened.
But like for me as an outsider, it's not enough to say, oh, they ditched iCache, because CIG creates new team and shift responsibility for certain features all the time. And over the past year, they have given a lot of responsibility for all the backend stuff to Montreal. So maybe it was just a shift in the company. So I think they should have said it sooner. For me, it's a bit first. It's a bit worrying that a piece of tech that was programmed, I don't know, like 2018, like in the modern history of SC development, turned out so soon to be outdated and not scalable enough. It's a bit of a worrying sign. Like if it was done in 2014, maybe, yeah, sure, the goal changed it, but at that time they already knew the kind of game they wanted to make. And the other thing is CIG does this all the time. They tell the bad news only when they have good news to tell. And I mean, it's a pattern at this point. They always do it. They did it with Stormmarine, Nuphonic, I mean, thousands of times. I don't even remember all the occasions this happened. So I would like if this changed. I can see why they don't want to do it as a PR standpoint. But if they want to go this way, then please don't sell me the open development bullshit. Because it's not open if you only talk to me when it suits your wallet.
Agreed.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely, of course, and that's definitely one of the knocks that I have on it is I wish they told us this stuff sooner, because it feels slightly disingenuous because you're telling me right before a ship sale, and you're only telling me when you have good news to speak about. But the one thing that I would question, and it feels to me that you have more knowledge on the subject than I do, is the conversations that they had about not knowing the edge cases, not knowing how things were going to work until they actually put it in, and that was one of the things that happened with iCache. So, and I think being honest about that with server meshing, and being honest about that with the persistent entity streaming and PES is a positive thing. What do you think about that, based off of the things that you just said?
I think they're doing the right thing, saying, hey guys, we don't know until it's done. I wish they did it sooner.
Truth?
Obviously, yeah, that's just a fact. When you program any complex piece of software, you can estimate, but there is no way to be sure, yeah, this is going to work exactly like I want.
Sure. Can I jump in for a moment, though? Because it feels... I want to make sure that we go back to your previous point, because when you say that, it feels like you're contradicting yourself from before, but maybe I just missed something. So you're upset that they didn't say it when it happened? Is that the issue? More than that it happened? Or the way that they hype up things without knowing what the solution's going to be?
It's many things.
Okay.
The thing they said it now and not when it happened is one of them.
Okay.
The other one is that only now it's kind of like they start to prepare for failure. They say, hey guys, we don't know. But in 2018, it was, everybody in the same universe.
Yeah.
The other thing is that, as I said, in software development, there is always uncertainty when the software is complex enough, if it will work, how well it will work. Mm-hmm. But usually, like, there is a difference in, okay, we made this, it doesn't work like we planned, we have to change, we have to improve this and that. And the other thing is, okay, we made this entirely new system for this objective, and it turns out it has to be completely rewritten using a different technology. Not saying it cannot happen, absolutely, but it's weird. And knowing CIG's history of development trouble, reworks, new Jesus stacks coming up all the time, again, it's a pattern starts to form, and it becomes a bit harder to believe it's in good faith. That being said,
100%.
yeah, go on.
I was gonna just question you about what would, because I'm playing devil's advocate here. Okay, I don't. This isn't necessarily my point of view. What would you say to the people who say that? Well, okay, but Star Citizen is doing things at a scale nobody's ever done before. Star Citizen is different. So every time that they try to do something that would be a common thing in another game, it's not as easy in this one. So the idea of them trying something and it not working out being weird doesn't seem as weird in a game like this. And they're always going to have that argument on their side. And it's, for me, I wouldn't know how to argue against it.
I think they're right.
Okay.
But again, I want to, what I want is to believe CIG is in good faith. I'm not saying CIG has to be perfect.
Understood.
And they can fail anytime. What I'm saying is, since this thing happened many times, when it happens for the, I don't know, like 5th time, and they don't tell it immediately, how can I trust Entity Graph is the one that's going to work?
Yeah.
Right? Because at some point we have to believe they are experienced enough in the scope of the game they want to build, that they can at least, I'm not saying they can build the perfect software right away, but at least something that works and that hasn't to be completely redone after years of development. But that being said, I have a lot of faith in CIG engineers, and I believe that Star Citizen in some ways will be made. Server meshing will come out. Nobody knows how many players there will be in the same zone, but that will happen. The problem I have is, let's say tomorrow, in a perfect world, server meshing, PES were to come out live. They work perfectly, and everybody's happy. 200 players, 300 players for server. Cool. What is the game now? Like, is the game more fun? Yeah, maybe it will be a bit more fun, but would it be a game, like a true game that you can play any game, any day? And that is the problem with Star Citizen for me. Is, I think, if we talk like about constructing a building, like a house, I think Star Citizen could be the greatest, like the tallest building ever made. But if the building itself, like how you interact with it, how you live in it, it's shit. Like you go into the elevator and the buttons are on the ceiling, then what's the point? Like, it's a huge architectural feat, engineering feat, but it's just not usable. And my biggest problem with the game is that after years, the core aspects like gunplay, FPS combat are still up in the air, and nobody knows how and when they will be decent enough to be enjoyable.
I agree. Yeah, that's something I struggle with too. I'm becoming less upset about it because I see things like reputation being worked on and inventory and these things. So I feel a little bit better, but I mean, just general gunplay and the inventory system and interacting with other players. It feels like they're trying, though. Like they went out of their way to try and fix the ship desync and things, you know. So there's they're making the effort towards that as well, which is why I've been a little bit more positive lately, is that they're trying to, it seems like they care a little bit more about the player experience. I don't think they care enough, but yeah. I just I wonder where like the disingenuous part is nowadays, but I definitely could have seen it a few years back, because it created expectations for server meshing that might be unrealistic, and now they're trying to pull back on those and be like, hey, we don't know what the expectations are. I'm happy they did it, but like you said earlier, I wish we just did it in the early days. That, hey, we're going, like, what the issue is would we have $500 million and procedural planets and the scale of the game that we all would like to play in, because it would be pretty cool, if they just said, hey guys, we're going to try to get a lot of players in a server, but we don't know what's going to happen. You know, I don't know. So it's like this, it's a weird dilemma that they put themselves in.
True.
And who suffers? Not them, we do. So the only people who can lose here are the developers who have a job at the company, not your Chris, your Sandy, your Ortwin, and us.
Well, I think it's more on us than the devs.
Because they can get another job, but anyone losing their job is a loss. Okay, it sucks, and I don't think I don't think not being able to play your video game is as good as, you know, as big of a loss as somebody losing the way that they feed themselves every day. So.
I can tell you that as much as SC is kind of seen as a joke in the gaming industry, having CIG on your resume, especially if you're a freshman, helps a lot with getting hired. So, yeah, I think the players would be the one that would lose more from Star Citizen failing. But as I said, I don't think it will fail in like CIG closes, but it may fail as a game, as a something like it has a lot of potential. But what if the potential is never realized? That's what worries me the most, because at that point we will have spent so much money with it, so much time for a game that could have been amazing, but it's just good.
I mean, when it comes to me, I don't know what to say for that, because it is what it is. I come from I work in the gambling industry. Like, you take a shot, you miss sometimes. It is what it is. But that's why I focus so much on trying to my damnedest to prevent that from happening, is focus on the game, because the game is what will ride you in the long term, not your fucking CitizenCon, not your dumbass videos. The game is what will drive it. I continuously have mentioned video games like Valheim, PUBG, all these other things, Fall Guys, ridiculous. Like, you just had a fun game and they just go viral and people play them forever, right? You don't have to do crazy marketing things. You don't have to tell everybody server meshing is going to be the greatest thing ever. Is if you treat your game the right way, it's going to get seen and people are going to just eat it up. And I feel like that's more of what I see now. More of, not the right amount. It's not perfect. It's not even close to good. But the even an ounce of focus in that direction makes me happier than I was before. I'm not satisfied. I'm not happy. I'm not okay with what we have on the servers whatsoever. But I also know that a lot of the stuff that they wrote in this letter specifically are the things that lead to that stuff being fixed. So many issues they blame or are directly involved with server tick rate. I think they get blamed more than they actually are involved with them. But the moment they don't have that excuse, we'll see what happens. Servers weren't crashing. They found a lot more bugs that existed that they never knew were there because servers were constantly crashing and restarting, right? When you focus more on the game, you're able to actually fix the problems and not band-aid them. And that's when I think the game's really going to be what it where the potential can start to be realized. So that's how I feel about everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we can only wait and hope for now.
That's it. That's all we can do. And the only other thing you can do is give feedback on the things to make sure they're not shit. because a lot of them are.
Yeah,
that's it.
don't get me started.
Don't get me started. Fuck. Yeah. But all right, Zane, I guess we'll let you go here because it's definitely time to call this one.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Anytime, dude. Thanks for talking with me.
Bye-bye.
Bye now. And that's another Answer the Call in the books, guys. That was pretty fun. I thought that was definitely a good episode. We had some really, really, really good conversations with a lot of people who I respect a lot in many different ways. So thank you very much for watching, everyone. If you're watching this on Twitch, it is being recorded. It'll go up on YouTube later today. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can always come by and join the show. Anywhere between 9 and 10 a.m. Eastern Time, the show starts. And it's on twitch.tv/SaltEMike. As well as you could join our Discord, discord.gg/SaltEMike, where all sorts of conversations go on, all the way from Star Citizen to Formula One, which is going on right now. No spoilers in the comments or the chat, all right? But that is that. And I appreciate you guys watching. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, comment, all those things. Not about Formula One. And I'll see you guys next time.